The Velthari Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds. Their fleets stretched across spiral arms. Their banners marked every sector they touched. Resistance was always the same, short, pitiful, and quickly erased by fire. The Velthari believed themselves eternal, their domination inevitable. So when word spread of a small blue-green planet called Earth, the Dominion laughed. Reports described the inhabitants as fragile bipeds, bound to their homeworld, playing, at space travel with primitive engines. No shields, no true warships, no deterrent worth mentioning. "Easy prey," said Lord Commander Valar, as he surveyed the hollow display aboard his flagship. Before him floated the image of Sol, its planets plotted, its resources catalogued, and its defenses noted, barely even worth recording. Around him, the Velthari Armada assembled, 1,000 ships strong, dreadnoughts gleaming like black knives, in the void. Their engines burned with cold precision. The commanders whispered to each other, voices smug with arrogance. Another world for the Dominion. Another people to kneel. They'll never even fight back. The fleets, formation locked into place, a predatory wall of metal and plasma. They were poised to strike, confident in their unstoppable momentum. And then it happened. At first, it was just a flicker. A strange anomaly registered at the edge of their sensors. A ripple of gravitic distortion, faint and brief, like a shadow, at the corner of one's vision. The fleet's AI marked it as non-threat, dismissing it as natural background interference. But then the shadow grew. The distortion swelled, warping the void itself. Space bent and shivered, light curling unnaturally as something massive forced its way into reality. The Velthari bridge crews stiffened, alarms whispered, data streams rushed across their displays, but none of it made sense. Lord Commander Valar rose slowly from his throne. His eyes locked on the forward viewport as the anomaly unfolded into something solid, and from that distortion emerged a vessel. At first glance, it resembled their own dreadnoughts, but larger, darker, somehow more ancient and more advanced all at once. Its hull stretched endlessly, swallowing the stars behind it. Matte black armor plates caught no light, rendering it an abyss adrift in the void. Along its length, weapon arrays pulsed faintly with restrained power. There were no banners, no insignias. Only a single word etched faintly in pale white script across its bow. Erebus. The Velthari Armada fell silent. No one issued orders. No one spoke. Even their comm channels, normally alive with chatter and command relays, went dead. It was as if every captain, every crewman across the 1,000 ships had frozen in place. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion did not know what to do. The Erebus moved slowly, silently, as if time itself bowed to its presence. Scanners strained to parse it, but its readings broke their systems. Weapon arrays glowed with signatures too vast to calculate. Its shield projections alone eclipsed the combined power of half the fleet. This cannot be right," muttered one officer aboard Valar's ship, his voice trembling. "Their world was primitive. They cannot have built this." But they had. The Velthari had always prided themselves on their strength. They told themselves they feared nothing. And yet, in that moment, every heart aboard every ship felt the same weight, an instinct deeper than thought. This was not an opponent. This was a predator. On the flagship's bridge, silence reigned until a single captain whispered through the commnet. "That thing isn't supposed to exist." The words rippled through the Armada like a plague. Valar clenched his claws. On the armrest of his throne, his pride warring with his fear, his instincts screamed at him to retreat, but his legacy demanded otherwise. He opened his mouth to command an attack, and then the Erebus turned. Its colossal frame rotated with deliberate slowness until its prow faced the heart of the Velthari formation. Dozens of batteries swiveled into alignment, all aimed at their fleet. Its main cannon began to hum. A deep vibration felt even through the vacuum of space. The energy spike registered on every ship's sensors, dwarfing anything the Velthari had ever witnessed. The Armada froze. Not a ship moved. Not a cannon charged. Not a single trigger finger twitched. They were paralyzed. Not by force, not by orders, but by fear. For they understood with primal clarity, if the human warship fired, none of them would survive. The silence stretched. Seconds became minutes. Still, the Erebus did not fire. It simply watched, its silent gaze heavier than any weapon. And in that silence, the Velthari Dominion realized something terrifying. Humanity had been underestimated. They were not prey, not primitives. They had hidden their strength, waiting, watching, until the moment came to reveal it. The Velthari Armada had marched boldly into Sol, only to find themselves standing on the edge of their own grave. Lord Commander Valar finally broke the silence, his voice thin and brittle. "Withdraw!" At first, no one moved. Then, slowly, the order rippled outward. Engines flared as the Armada turned, ship by ship, away from Earth. Not in battle formation, not with discipline, but in retreat. They left as quickly as they had come, and the Erebus never pursued. It simply hovered in the void, silent and still, a sentinel watching as the invaders fled. When the Velthari ships finally slipped into hyperspace, the tension aboard their bridges did not ease. No one cheered. No one spoke. Each captain, each crew member, sat in silence, haunted by the same thought. They had not survived because of their strength. They had survived only because the humans had allowed them to. And so the Armada carried the memory home. The image of that black dreadnought, weapons humming, a single warship capable of unmaking empires. From that day on, the Velthari Dominion never again spoke of humanity as weak. Behind closed doors, their leaders whispered of Earth with fear, not disdain, because they knew what awaited them, should they ever return. The Erebus, the first human warship they had ever seen, the warship that froze an entire armada in silence. The Zorath Empire was old, arrogant, and cruel. For centuries they had expanded through fire and conquest, erasing civilizations with ease. Their fleets blotted out suns, their soldiers toppled thrones, and their banner hung over hundreds of worlds. Resistance was a word that had lost meaning. When their explorers first reported a small world called Earth, the high admirals of the Zorath laughed. A primitive people, only barely reaching beyond their cradle. They had ships, yes, but fragile. Things, thin-skinned, undergunned, crawling on clumsy engines, hardly worth classifying as a star-faring race. The decision was swift: annex them. The Empire would gain a resource world, and the humans would be broken and bent into servitude like all the rest. So the fleet came. 100 Zorath warships surged into Sol like a tidal wave of iron and plasma. Their banners lit the void. Their engines scorched the darkness. Commanders smirked on their bridges, already tasting victory. Another soft world. They'll fall before they even know we're here. Their defenses won't last an hour. The humans, they thought, would cry out in terror when they saw the majesty of the Zorath Armada. They would beg for mercy. They would kneel. But what the Zorath saw instead silenced every tongue. It happened as their fleet settled into formation above Earth's orbit. Sensors pinged, something moving, faint, distant. At first, the Zorath ignored it. A local patrol, maybe. A relic satellite. Nothing of consequence. Then the shadow grew. From the void slid a shape, vast and terrible. It emerged not from hyperspace, but from the deep silence of the solar system, as if it had been there all along, waiting. The Zorath commanders leaned forward in disbelief. The vessel was colossal. Its length dwarfed their dreadnoughts, its hull black and angular, swallowing the starlight. Rows upon rows of weapon batteries lined its flanks, each one pulsing with restrained energy. Its armor shimmered with a shield field so dense that their scanners bled static. Its silhouette resembled a predator coiled to strike. It was not a ship of defense. It was a ship of war, a moving fortress. On its bow, etched in stark white against the abyss-black hull, was a single designation: HSS Leviathan, the foe. Comm channels of the Zorath Armada went silent. The sneers vanished. Even the most prideful commanders, veterans of countless conquests, sat in mute disbelief. Their tactical AIs strained to analyze the vessel, but no classification was possible. Its size exceeded projections. Its energy, readings were off the charts. Its weapon systems couldn't even be identified. This cannot be human," one captain whispered. His voice cracked across the commnet, unsteady. "They don't have the technology. This must be an ally, some hidden benefactor." But the truth was undeniable. The Leviathan was human. Rumors had floated through the galaxy for years. Whispers of Deathworlders, a strange, violent species from a hostile planet, crafting ships not for exploration, but for survival against an unforgiving home. Most dismissed it as myth, tavern tales spun by smugglers. The Zorath themselves had scoffed at the stories. But now, staring at the Leviathan, the Armada knew the legends were real. The Zorath fleet wavered. Their formation trembled as hesitation rippled from ship to ship. Orders failed to come. No one dared breathe, and then across every channel came a voice, calm, cold, human. "This is your first and final warning. Leave now," the words cut, like a blade. There was no roar, no threat, no theatrics, just quiet certainty, the kind that came from overwhelming power. On the flagship of the Zorath Armada, Admiral Zaith's throat tightened. He felt the weight of that voice settle over him like a storm cloud. It was not bravado, it was not bluff, it was truth. His tactical screens told him the same. The Leviathan's weapons arrays tracked every Zorath ship simultaneously. Its shields could withstand the fire of their entire fleet. Its engines radiated with potential for maneuvers their ships could never match. In one battle, in one moment, the Zorath could lose everything. His pride screamed to fight. His heart demanded retreat. But his fleet gave him no choice. They had already gone silent, paralyzed by fear. No captain moved, no gun charged, no engine flared. Zaith opened his mouth to command an attack, but the words died on his tongue. What if he was wrong? What if this single ship could, in fact, obliterate them all? The risk was too great. Minutes passed in suffocating silence. The human warship never moved, never flinched, never fired. It simply waited. Finally, Zaith lowered his head. "Withdraw." The command rippled across the Armada. Engines lit, formations broke, and the great Zorath fleet turned away from Earth. Not with honor, not with pride, but with shame. They fled. And as they left, every ship felt the same crushing realization. Humanity had let them go. They were alive not because they had earned it, but because the humans had chosen it. The Armada returned home broken. No songs celebrated their campaign. No cheers greeted their ships. For the first time in centuries, an invasion had ended in silence. And whispers began, whispers that the humans had built more than one Leviathan, that the galaxy's myths were not only true, but underestimated, that Earth was not weak prey, but a predator that had waited, hidden, until the day it revealed its teeth. The Zorath Empire never mocked humanity again, for they had heard the human voice in the void, calm and cold, and they had seen the Leviathan, legends made real. The Karth Dominion had never known fear. For 5 centuries, their armadas swept through the stars, crushing resistance with fire and steel. They were predators, cold, methodical, unstoppable. Entire civilizations had vanished before their banners. Their commanders believed themselves destined to rule not only their quadrant, but the galaxy itself. Now, their gaze turned to Sol. The orders were simple: surround the human system, break their colonies, and subjugate Earth before its people had a chance to resist. Intelligence reports described humans as fragile, reckless, and technologically backwards. They had ships, but none that could stand against the Dominion. Their defenses were laughable. So the Karth Armada came. 500 warships surged into the Sol system like a black tide. Sleek destroyers, towering dreadnoughts, carriers bristling with fighter wings. They blotted out the stars as they took position around Mars. Their commander, High Marshal Drezak, stood on the command deck of the flagship Korath's Wrath, surveying the red planet beneath him. "Earth will fall within days," he said confidently, his voice a growl of iron. His officers chuckled in agreement, but deep within the void, far beyond Saturn's orbit, something stirred. At first it was nothing, just a faint signal, an odd ripple on their sensors, a tremor in the dark. The Armada's scanners marked it as an anomaly and ignored it, until the anomaly grew. A distortion rippled through the void, a fracture in the silence of space. Lights flickered across Karth bridges as systems strained to process impossible readings. And then, from that fracture, it emerged, the human ship. It came not with the haste of prey, but with the calm inevitability of a predator. A single vessel slid from the dark beyond Saturn, massive beyond comprehension. Its hull was jagged, angular, built for war. Its sheer size dwarfed even the largest of the Dominion's dreadnoughts. Black armor shimmered under the faint light, an abyss given form. Rows upon rows of weapons lined its surface, cannons larger than cities, railguns that seemed to stretch forever, missile bays yawning like the maws of titans. Its shields burned like a second sun, radiating energy fields stronger than the combined fleet of 500 Karth warships. Its presence was suffocating. The Armada fell into silence. No orders came, no cannons charged, not even the hum of chatter across their commnet. Every officer, every crewman stared at the colossal silhouette before them. Their eyes widened. Their hearts pounded. High Marshal Drezak's jaw tightened. He had fought in dozens of campaigns, burned worlds, crushed rebellions, but he had never seen anything like this. "This is not possible," whispered one of his captains. "They were primitives. They cannot have built this." But they had. The human dreadnought turned, slowly, deliberately, until its vast prow faced the Armada. Weapon batteries swiveled with eerie precision, each one locking onto a different Karth ship. Its main cannon began to glow, a faint pulse of light that grew brighter with every heartbeat. And still, the ship said nothing. The silence spread through the Karth fleet like a disease. It was not the silence of discipline. It was the silence of fear. Every captain felt it, every crewman knew it. If the human dreadnought fired, they would not survive. Drezak tried to speak, but his voice faltered. The weight of the moment crushed him. The tactical AIs screamed warnings. Projections showed annihilation. Entire fleets erased in seconds. The Armada shattered before it could even fight back. The High Marshal's pride demanded battle. His blood demanded conquest. But his instincts, the primal, buried voice of survival, told him the truth. To fight was to die. Minutes passed. The dreadnought never moved, never fired. It simply watched. And in that watching, the Armada understood the truth. Humanity was no weakling race. They had hidden their strength. They had waited, building weapons that defied imagination. They were predators, just as the Karth once believed themselves to be. Drizak's claws dug into the armrest of his throne, his chest burned with humiliation. But he knew. He had no choice. "Withdraw," he said at last. The word spread across the Armada. Engines flared, ships turned, formations broke. The great Karth Dominion, 500 ships strong, fled. Not in victory, not in honor, but in silence. And still the dreadnought did not pursue. It lingered in the void, its vast silhouette framed against the stars, its weapons tracking every retreating ship until the Armada was gone. When the Dominion fleet finally vanished into hyperspace, the fear remained. No songs celebrated their return. No parades awaited their ships. The story spread in whispers, not proclamations. The Karth Dominion, the conquerors of countless worlds, had been humbled without a single shot fired. They carried the memory with them. The black dreadnought, the weapons like suns, the silence that froze 500 ships in place. From that day forward, the Dominion never again spoke of humans as prey. They did not call them weak. They did not call them primitive, for they knew what awaited them should they return. The dreadnought unveiled in the void above Sol, the warship that made an empire retreat, the day the Karth Armada learned fear.